Alrighty. Testing, testing. Hey there. Are we live? All right, guys. Looks like people are trickling in. We have a couple minutes. This is the first time I've been live streaming in a while, so I'm on a new setup. I'm using Restream, and it seems like there's about a 5 or 6 second delay. So I'm going to answer questions. Feel free to send them in over time, and I can get to those as we go. Otherwise, there's a lot of new exciting news for you guys. All right, let's get going. It says there's across YouTube and Twitch about 5 people watching. I don't know if anybody is there, but feel free and welcome to say hello. So, thanks guys for joining. This is basically to start kicking the ball off rolling. I've personally not been as attentive as I could be on the public side of the company. And the reason for that is because essentially COVID and the war in Ukraine were pretty hard. We had a really big business deal that fell through, that where somebody wanted to buy the company. It's the world's biggest gaming news network, and then that turned into a big partnership instead. And then COVID hit, everything fell flat. Instead of fundraising, we basically had to like boil down to just me and one developer, and barely made it through. When otherwise it was the time when things were growing a lot, and GameTree it was getting way more signups during that time, and really good. It was helping people during COVID. But unfortunately, we didn't have the resources to actually take advantage of that, and the business world sort of shut down. The other thing was the war in Ukraine, which hit us pretty hard. Things were just getting back up and going again. War in Ukraine, where I was living at the time, hit and everything went flat. Since then, though, met a co-founder, Dana Sidorenko, who came on board, and we were able to pick things up together and raise funding, and basically get GameTree going to a stage where it's getting more traffic and use than it ever has before. Um, hey, Futihi. Hey there. And hey, Zeus. Nice to see you here. Just sharing the story with GameTree's recent stuff and why I haven't been active as much lately. So yeah, so that was also a hard time. Most of my effort was going into helping with the war, and GameTree almost fell apart. But meeting Dana helped piece things back together, and we were able to raise funding. And then GameTree grew quite a lot, but during that time, the code base got a bit stale. The app's a bit buggier and slower if you've been using it. So what we've been doing in the meantime is actually building a new version of GameTree that's actually very close to release, probably within the next week or two. It's going to be missing some of the features that it currently has, but because it's a new app, it's going to be faster. bugs are gone, and also we're gonna be able to start building on top of it like 3 times faster than the other app because it's all newest architecture, newest up-to-date code bases, and really excited to actually be able to start executing so much of the roadmap and so many of the ideas that we've been sitting on and thinking about for GameTree. So with that, I'll share a quick story just about starting GameTree, and again, feel free to write any questions or anything you'd like to share in the chats. But the origination of GameTree came back when I was a recent college graduate. I was living with a few friends and went to a new city for my first job. And eventually, I was just really depressed. I would just go to work, go home, play games online by myself, and then go back to work. And even though I was doing like the right stuff in life, I had a good job, I was staying out of trouble. I realized that when I was playing games online, I wasn't playing with friends or communities like I used to, but I was just playing online by myself, which was kind of weird. And gaming is more fun and meaningful when you're playing with people you care about. And that's what led to GameTree a lot. And since then, I've been living in a lot of different places around the world, different cities, and it's a real problem having to rebuild tribe every time moving somewhere. So GameTree's become extra important. Unfortunately, because of COVID and the war in Ukraine, we haven't been able to add as much to the app as I'd like to. But now that things are faster and we're funded, we're going to start building really next generation stuff that I'm going to be able to share with you today. Um, so the vision with GameTree really is about connecting people. There's a loneliness epidemic that is getting more and more popular to the point I think now where it's pretty mainstream, and COVID revealed a lot of that. Young men are especially lonely, being the loneliest demographic, and it's the first time in history that that's been the case. And that's also the prime gaming demographic, though it's not just a thing for gamers. And the purpose with GameTree is to not just help people find people to play with, but people you'd be real life friends with, that you'll have a lot of tastes and interests in common, a large number of games in common, and to help people not only meet each other, but also stay in touch and develop these relationships through gaming as a lens. So that's sort of the purpose with it. And for that reason, the company was actually incorporated as a public benefit corporation, which is a special kind of company. That means that we're allowed to maximize profit, but not required to. Because a lot of companies, or basically all of them, after they go public, they kind of suck. The founders leave, it becomes about maximizing metrics, and then eventually it's a race to the bottom where it's more about cutting costs and maximizing profit while completely forgetting the customer more and more over time as sort of market saturation and a company's locked in with that. So GameTree is in essence meant to actually do its job really well. And if you compare us to, for example, the dating app industry, they purposely suck. They want to keep people there for a long time. Whereas GameTree, we genuinely do try to do as good of a job matching people instead, even if it shortens the lifespan of users. But with that, let's dive into some more things about what is actually the next steps with GameTree and some steps on that. So GameTree at its current state is primarily a gamer matching app. You can take personality tests and rate and review your favorite games, and then discover people. The new version that's coming out has those things, but upgraded. We have a new personality test that's actually a combination of the gamer DNA test, the personal values test, and the personality psychology test wrapped into one. What we did is we took the most important questions and then put those together. Another benefit is it's not only shorter, but if somebody takes one test and somebody else takes a different test, we can't really compare those for matching. Whereas now it's one test with all the same questions in the same order. So even people who don't finish, it's still useful. Um, so something that's exciting on the roadmap from there is that we're actually going to be getting into creating small communities and what we're going to call tribes. And this is like micro communities. If you've played Dungeons and Dragons, you might know that usually 4 or 5 people is sort of ideal. It's a magic number. This scientist Dunbar discovered Dunbar's number, which is the amount of people that we can know, and he figured out that humans are happiest in certain integral groups and how we form relationships. And 4 to 5 is basically a good amount of people for a group without having to have like an official leader or complicated logistics. Everybody gets to talk and be heard. So we're doing something really innovative that the world's never seen before, which is we're actually going to curate groups for the first time. So right now, GameTree is good for finding individual people, but in real life, your personality and their personality don't matter too much because it's not about the other person's personality. It's about a group and what kinds of friends you have and having a variety of people. And within a group, being able to be yourself and be appreciated for who you are and be able to be your natural self. For example, somebody who's really organized is going to be kind of organizing the group, and somebody who's really chaotic might be introducing new fun and excitement and stuff. And if everybody is an organizer, for example, the group's going to get stale and boring. Or if everybody's chaotic, one person's going to have to eventually fill the role of the organizer, and they're going to be really unhappy and doing a bad job. So what we're going to do is actually curate groups for gaming, and you could have like a core group that's just a group of friends. You could seed it with like 2 or 3 real friends, and maybe you want to add a couple people with similar values but different types of personalities to complement you guys, and similar tastes in games, of course. Or you could just form different groups around different games and stuff. Like, for example, League of Legends and Dota and stuff like that require 5 people, which fits pretty nicely. So that's something we have in store. Another thing is curating communities. Community is a buzzword right now, and a lot of it's not actually communities. And I'm especially not that big of a fan of streamer influencers where it's false connection. It's a one-to-many relationship. It's not real connection. It's like substituting for it. So what we want to do is actually curate not just individuals and small groups, but actually help you discover communities. And these could be like a clan or a guild, interests groups, and it could even actually be streamers and content creators with a bias towards not just showing the most popular stuff. For example, on Twitch, I'm seeing For You live channels. All of them have like thousands and thousands of people watching them right now. And those people don't really need the help, and you're not actually supporting real people as much because they're already popular, and they're not actually caring as much about you as an individual because you're small relative to the pie. But by being able to curate a lot deeper with all of our understanding of your tastes and personality and stuff with information you feed into GameTree, we can curate a lot deeper to show you more niche creators who align with your personal values and tastes on a new level that also might not have as many followers, or communities where there might be like 10,000, 100,000 discords, but out of those, which are the ones that you would resonate with the people the most out of everybody? And GameTree doesn't have to host the communities. We're just a pointer, a directory. Yeah, you can have a public chat and stuff like that. It's more about discoverability and helping people discover these things. And part of this is in feedback because on GameTree, the number one thing that's actually been a problem for our moderators is not like sex bots or like scammers, but it's actually been people just promoting their communities a lot. And it turns out there's not actually a good place to do this right now, and it's hard to get started and get going on all the social platforms that exist. So this is an opportunity to help people not just connect on smaller scales, but also on larger scales, and to also get rid of a lot of the spam of people promoting their communities that we otherwise have to have the moderators being like, yo, you're only allowed to promote like once a week. Now they can just naturally be discovered without having to do manual stuff and spamming basically. So that's another thing that we're really excited for, is these groups and communities. Another one is user-generated content. We're going to start positioning more to be like a Facebook for gamers. If you want to post about gaming, like for me, like I play miniature war games. I literally have these little models I painted and stuff. These are kind of weird for me to post on like Facebook or Instagram. Most people don't know what this is or care. But GameTree would be a perfect kind of place because you can tag a game and then share it with relevant people and curate that. And you could share it with a community or the public or just your friends or a tribe. But it's a way to sort of share content. Also, when you're browsing the internet, if you see a funny meme or like a news article, you'll be able to like click the share button and actually have GameTree pop up on the list of things. So you can actually share and discuss news and stuff more curated to gaming that isn't really appropriate to put in other places. Otherwise, what people do is they have like separate accounts like dedicated to like a specific game, but then if you change games or whatnot, it's just kind of weird and it's not really building real connection. So the idea with this is that you can have it set so that it'll be either a balance of like high quality popular content and friends stuff, or you can kind of adjust it so it's more 80-20 one direction or the other based on the kind of experience that you personally want to have. And so user-generated content is helpful too because um, right now with GameTree, it's mostly about finding the friends, and then we are improving our chat quite a lot. The app will be a lot faster, but there's not as much to do on the app. But now with short form content, which is something that's basically taken over um, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, like everything, it's everywhere, and there's not really a place for that for gamers. So we're just basically making a more social version of that, so that when opening GameTree, there's actually something to do. You can like get relevant news, game recommendations, see what friends are up to, stuff like that. But it's by no means the only use case for GameTree, but it's something that can just kind of give you an excuse to open it up and see what people are up to, as opposed to only having chats for that, which otherwise GameTree historically hasn't been the best place to do because it wasn't the biggest thing that we had invested into. Another thing is we have a new test that I'd already teased, but the new test, we've really refined it down a lot more to like what are the most influential values and personality traits and things like that, which influence people becoming friends on external platforms, for example, Steam and Facebook, which we have been able to measure. So excited to get that going. And then another thing is having an AI assistant. We've had admins a long time ago that were personal contacts, which delighted people quite a lot, but it's not something that scales that well. You can't really, if somebody leaves as an admin or isn't available, then suddenly it's a really complicated system. So we're gonna have an AI bot that can not only like answer questions and collect feedback and bug reports and stuff, but also be able to eventually do anything you want. So you could say, hey, I want to find a friend who's playing this game, or I want a game recommendation that's kind of like this. So it'll just kind of do everything for you. And so you hardly even have to use their user interface at all. It'll just be the full power of GameTree, but just with like a voice chat or a text if you want to use it that way. We also have plans for a Discord bot that can go into servers for coordinating gameplay, seeing people's better, deeper profiles, because it's easy to lose people on Discord just not knowing who they are anymore. The profiles are quite bad. Another thing is game sessions, which we started to get into, but we were never able to implement the full plans because of the technical limitations from the code falling behind with the war in Ukraine and COVID. But with that, we are going to have game sessions with calling game overlays. We're working on a partnership where we're actually going to have 7 times faster lag delay than Discord. It'll be the fastest in the world if this closes successfully. So it'll be good for competitive gaming as well. But the most important thing is just being able to find a group of your friends who are free, or people you've played with before who you liked, or people you're predicted to like, and just put together a group quickly and then launch you into a game together and just doing something better than traditional matching, which is actually a lot of what killed social and gaming and led to a lot of my own personal loneliness a while back. Where before, for example, in Counter-Strike days, we'd have a server for our friends and you'd play with the friends. You might have a couple other servers where you like the people, the rotations, the play style, and you get to know people and its community. Instant queue matching changed all that. We just click a button, you're with strangers. It's an easy action, but in the long term, suddenly it's so easy to play by yourself that people don't really coordinate as much anymore. So with that, we are basically making that more social. Game designers with the quick match, it's really about skill and ping, but now taking into account who somebody is and the personality. For example, Grand Theft Auto heists. If you get home from work and you're tired after working all day, then it really sucks being with toxic people or somebody who's going to leave immediately. That might be the highlight of your day, but using game tree matching, then you'll be able to find the right people. So another thing on the radar is actually going to be an expansion of Game Tree into Hobby Tree. This isn't going to happen right away, but what we wanted to do was include more than just games for matching people, because the best friends are not people who have one or two things in common, but as many things in common as possible for the most part. And if somebody, for example, likes the same music as you or has all their same favorite books, it's more likely you're going to be real life friends. And then gaming is a good vector to connect. But then we figured, hey, if we're going to add a directory of like everything in the world that you can just add as tags, why not just let you match by that? And then you can actually have those as criteria that you could look for. For example, if you want to find somebody who's reading a certain book, you can have somebody to discuss that with. And in addition to that, we'll have a tag system where you can add things to either your profile or a game. So for example, if it's World of Warcraft, there's a certain server that you're playing on, you can actually limit to people who are playing on that server, or it'll be a free tag system, so you can write whatever you want. A certain skill level or class or role. You can have this adjustable system where you can search by game and by profile. And even let's say you have like a certain disease, like if you have Lyme disease, you can actually find other people who have Lyme disease who you'd also get along with and have a lot of stuff in common with that you can connect with. Or if you want to start a band or somebody to go hiking with, you can just find people to connect with through hobbies. So it'll still do everything GameTree does and still curate and adapt itself based on your personal identity and interests and tastes. But it'll do it in a way that is now more powerful and deeper. It's both broader and deeper. And with that, we're also going to be sharing a really big update is we're going to be doing crowdfunding. Our goal is to launch late April. This has been a dream of mine from the very beginning. Actually started one of the first four crowd funds in America when it became legalized. But it was at a time when I was poor, living in a ghetto, no team, no product, no budget. So it was really just like a shot at like, hey, if millions of people see this, it's a quick way to start the company because GameTree is extremely hard to start, needing thousands of people using it every day for it to really work well. And thankfully, we've been able to beat the odds and get it to that stage now where there's thousands of people signing up without any marketing spend or promotions. It's all just organic right now. Uh, but with crowdfunding, it's a way to really share with the community, to have it so that an early stage amount of the company can be owned by you guys, the users who help build this company and are really the ones who care about it. It's also strategically good because it creates more barriers of entry, as well as evangelism and such. But mostly it just really feels like a better way to go rather than just the rich getting richer, being able to have wealth be shared. Hey, Destiny, welcome. So that's another piece of news is that we'll be doing equity crowdfunding. So you guys will be able to own a piece of the, the app. Destiny, just to catch you up, so we're going to be expanding to hobby tree down the road. So it's not just games, but you can match and consider like basically all your interests, tastes, and hobbies. We're going to be curating small groups as well as doing game sessions where you can just launch into a game. Actually, another cool feature with that is to be able to live stream a game session. So let's say that you are playing with some friends and you have an extra spot or two. If you want, you can live stream. A good way to meet people, or if you're looking for a group to join, you can actually just see what the dynamic is like and kind of spy on the group and then decide if you want to join or not. So it kind of helps both parties be able to play with people that they want to play with. Just because right now, when you're playing with a bunch of strangers, people can be toxic. You don't have the community. People are different. If you're into like trash talking and somebody hates swearing, they're going to find each other toxic, even though nobody's actually wrong. They're just different. And that's one of the big things that's disappeared in communities nowadays that we hope to solve by curating people quite a bit better. So with that, those are the big updates. The new MVP is going to be coming out in about a week or two, and it's going to be a scaled back version of current GameTree, but we're going to be able to again iterate on it like way, way, way faster than in the past. So it'll have the matching personality test, and then chats like better than ever before, and then that's something that we'll keep building on to with user-generated content like stories and curated communities and such. With that said, that was a long ramble. Are there any questions that you guys have or anything you want to share? There's a super long delay here, so there's going to be a pretty long awkward pause in case you write something before I can respond. So about the bot situation is that's something that's always been a game of cat and mouse. Like we get a step ahead and it goes away, and then the bots evolve and then they counter it. We did raise some investment from a company called Futureverse as a strategic partnership. They're building a metaverse and not like in a Facebook meta, like control the world kind of way, but they're building it in more like Ready Player One, where it's like a decentralized thing about connecting everything. And we're actually going to be using a login system with them, so it'll be a lot easier to not have bots be able to go through this kind of tunnel. And also, we're going to be implemented into their ecosystem as well. So what they have is they actually own the rights to Ready Player One. It's a pretty cool operation. I'm excited by their vision to kind of interconnect a lot of things. Um, so with them, we also have the capacity down the road to actually issue NFTs or issue tokens and things like that. Even with the crowdfunding, there'll be a secondary market for the shares, whether that's going to be on the platform start engine that we're aiming at going towards, or we might even tokenize it so that if people want to liquidate and they want the money faster, they can just sell a token or even have the tokens tradable in GameTree. It's something we might even be able to drop. Like let's say people are given a lot of awards for being helpful, non-toxic, or for being friendly, or for like earning certain achievements and badges and stuff. Like that might be a possibility as well. It's not in the short-term roadmap because I think the most important thing is just doing a good job helping people meet and play with and stay in touch with gamer friends. But those are things that quite seem on the roadmap, especially seeing how that kind of industry of blockchain and stuff develops. But yeah, the Futureverse partnership should clamp down quite a bit on the bot situation. We also before we're kind of doing different things, like for example, having a CAPTCHA email verification, making it so people can't copy and paste the same messages. But part of it is that we've sort of been paused on playing catch up with the bots because the whole team's been focused on the new version that's coming out. So we kind of have been letting the bots get ahead, but that'll be changing soon enough. But yeah, let me know if there's any other questions or ideas or anything you'd like to share. So about Uwu. Um, Uwu is the dating portion of GameTree, and the reason we originally implemented that was because about 30% of us were using it as a dating app, which it was designed to be a friend finding app. And if you're in a relationship or not wanting to date, it's kind of annoying having people messaging you for that a lot. So Uwu was a really simple solution where we just had a toggle where you could just select like dating or friends and get the right attention going to the right people. And it also makes it so we don't have to kick off a third of the user base. Um, Unfortunately, that had a side effect where the app stores suddenly made GameTree for ages 17 plus instead of I think like 12 or 13 plus. And it's sort of unfair because, for example, Uwu is only visible to users who are 17 plus, and it's not something we really marketed or promoted. And even though it was quarantined, kind of like Facebook. Facebook has a dating feature that's only visible. Facebook's allowed to be 12 or 13 plus, but we're not. And it's not really fair. We're doing the exact same thing as them. So we're actually going to not have Uwu. And so we're going to issue refunds for people who have had Uwu subscriptions. We will be reintroducing subscriptions again later, but pausing things in the meantime, just because the more important thing is actually just getting the really good functionality there. And then maybe we'll do some sort of dating thing in the future, maybe as a companion app, or if we can somehow get around them earmarking us to not be able to be shown to younger people. But the younger ages are important. One, because like young people are lonely and they do want to use the app, and also for the sake of growth. Younger people are extremely way more viral. Like 13, 14, 15 year olds share things like 10 times more than people in their 20s. And so over time, over the years, it's nice because this is something that's really going to help us be able to be a lot more viral and to be able to grow GameTree because this is the kind of thing that works better the more people there are. And because we curate people really deeply, if there's 10 times as many people in the database, if you're looking for a friend or a player, we're going to be able to show you a better person with that. And also it gives us, more capacity to develop newer and better features and integrate with more platforms and ecosystems and stuff. Any other questions? Okay, if there, oh, here we go. So yeah, so Dusk is saying that as an admin, knowing where to send people, yeah, that's a good point. It's tricky because there are no good friend finding apps. The only one that's really popular is Bumble, and it's basically an appendage to a dating app. I'm kind of disgusted by the dating app industry because I personally think all the dating apps suck. They don't really curate people deeply, and I think they do that on purpose to extend the lifespan of users. Whereas with GameTree, it's our kind of foot in the door is matching, and people are willing to share a lot about themselves in order to get matched. Because I think alongside our health, friendship is and social connections are the most important thing in the world. And so we're willing to share a lot more about ourselves if it means that we're going to find a better friend that could be like immeasurably valuable during our lifetime. And friend finding apps, like even though they're very important, they're harder to monetize as well. It's like lower on Maslow's hierarchy of needs um, or later. So that's been something that's been a challenge. Luckily, we've been able to go through and pull through, and we've raised funding and just closed more funding. And then hopefully with the crowdfunding, we'll be able to just have a very healthy long war chest to be able to develop things for the long term. But with that is communities, gameplay coordination, user-generated content, more kinds of things that are like sort of meant to help facilitate gaming in a way that doesn't really exist anywhere else. For example, here on Twitch or on YouTube or on Discord or even on things like Xbox Live and stuff. They have pretty big holes, and it has to be a new independent company to do this stuff because the bigger companies have conflicts of interest to cooperate with each other. So that's something that we're looking to do is just sort of be like the glue or the air or the ocean in between all these different platforms. Let's say that you want to do tournaments. It could even be real life games or online. You could have almost like a LinkedIn where you can get badges or awards and even prize support for tournaments. Being able to have a central hub where you can actually follow up with people. Let's say that you're looking at an event, you could actually see out of all the people at that event who you like the most and who you should maybe meet at like Comic Con or Game Developer Conference or an online event and actually connect with that person and not just see that you play a game in common, but be like, oh, like this person has like two of my favorite books as mutual books, and you suddenly have like more interest in the person and easier talking points and a higher prediction that they're actually people you'll get along with. So yeah, so GameTree is meant to be friendship, even evolving into Hobby Tree later as well. That'll be a main focus. Maybe farther down the road, it could be a spin-off app like dating and even networking could be one as well. But there's just so much to do in the meantime that it's not a priority at the moment. Anything else? And by the way, I'm planning to start doing these live streams monthly. I've been off the radar a bit because of the war in Ukraine. COVID hit me hard, and also just partly burnout. Is just starting GameTree is like pushing a boulder up a hill, and I put a lot of money into the company. I was very poor for a long time. That made it challenging to kind of keep working on it all the time. So when Dana joined, it was nice having someone to help carry the load. And part of me was sort of like resting and recouping from that. But now I'm all set and back, and I'm actually living in Austin now, so I'm back stateside as well from Ukraine. Yeah, so if you have ideas for what to do about Uwu as a way to quarantine dating, I'm happy to hear it. What we've had is muting, where you can have people so they can't match or chat for a little bit. Um, what we could do is maybe partner with a dating app, or like even there's a couple that are kind of doing gamer dating that we could refer people to as an alternative. For example, there was Kippo that popped up. I don't know if they're still active, and there's also even gamerdating.com. Or maybe we just make a companion app where we can just copy and paste a lot of the same code and refer people. Again, it is something that wasn't really that intrusive with GameTree. It's nice that you could just flip a toggle and it was optional to opt into it. But ideally, we'll be able to have a version of GameTree that could have that toggle without being marked as unsafe for children, which is kind of silly to me because again, it's a hidden feature that isn't even shown to children or interacting with them in any way otherwise. So hopefully we stop getting the app stores kind of being unfair to us and not giving us the same terms that apps like Facebook get. But in the meantime, it's sort of a sacrifice we have to make. This is good stuff, Dusk. If you have anything else. So yeah, appreciate your help. And this really has been a group effort, and that's like keep making a startup work. Really, it's so motivating getting testimonials from people, finding friends, and also from people willing to help keep things going. And just in the shared mission, like if it was just me, I definitely would have given up a long time ago. And a lot of similar apps have come and gone since starting this. It's nice that we're getting the momentum now where there's thousands of people signing up per day, but it's still a long way to go. We haven't really been prioritizing monetization that much, and we didn't for a while. But this is the sort of thing that really builds up and expands and then monetizes at scale with like ads, like basically anything else, or subscriptions to get rid of ads and have some sort of like cosmetic type stuff, not to like uh, block core functionality. And we currently have Jesus or Jesus. Yeah. Jesus is new to the mod team, has been super active and really helpful. So super glad you're with us as well. And hopefully you'll lead us in our path. um, so with Hobby Tree, Hobby Tree won't be a separate app. It seems like, and it's not going to be an immediate transformation, but it's something that Game Tree will eventually be rebranded as, where it'll still function and look very similar. You could still like pick a game and match people by that game. It'll still factor in people's games. You'll have a feed curated to stuff you're interested in. It's just you'll also be able to have other hobbies and interests. For example, like a lot of people like anime, and people with the same anime taste are more likely to be friends if they also have the same gaming tastes and vice versa. So this allows us to curate people better and also to create spaces for these kinds of people that aren't really being caught or well networked in any other systems. There really is a friendship shortage, an epidemic, if you will, going on, and uh, having hobbies in common is such an amazing good way to build these connections. So it gives you stuff to talk about, some shared identity, excuses to hang out. So this could even eventually go into even like sports, and ideally more tabletop games and stuff in the future as well. It's easier to scale online first because you can match people across time zones and stuff. But ideally, later vision would be like, let's say it's a Friday night and you want to do something maybe besides drink. You could just see all the games going on, and it'll be curated by the games you like and the groups you get along with the best, and you could just hang out with people. So the upcoming crowdfunding campaign will be providing funding, or will there be additional perks for the investment? So there's definitely going to be additional perks. One of the important ones, like some levels could be, I mean, I think the most important one is having a private group where um, basically like an inner mastermind or like a monthly or quarterly meeting where we could share the roadmap designs, things that we're working on, be able to solicit input and advice and opinions from the community and have sort of direct access to that. And with people on the inside of the GameTree team, people that do the most could even be welcome to join our Slack and sort of see what it's like on the inside. There's also going to be, of course, once we implement gamification, we're still going to have all the badges and stuff we introduced. It's just not in the MVP. Of course, there'll be like really exclusive badges and like decorations, online status icons, avatar blings, stuff like that, as well as, for example, like lifetime subscriptions and things like that. We haven't created the exact rewards yet. We're still doing it's a lot of paperwork to file all this with the government, but it should be all filed away in that time. Um, Anything else, guys? So the desktop version of the app we have right now. Well, the desktop and web. We might be deprecating them. It depends on the compatibility. One of the things that's made the new version harder to build is it's compatible with existing GameTree compared to just building something new and fresh. So I don't know if we're going to deprecate the web and desktop app because we're kind of having things simpler. We definitely will introduce them later, and it has been the plan for GameTree to be a primarily desktop experience. It's just with the old code base that was challenging. For example, even getting calling to work. It's just a lot of the packages and code was out of date with how much we had to scale back with the hard times of the war in Ukraine and COVID. But with everything up to date and faster, we can just implement packages and libraries and things a lot faster and easier. So with desktop, for example, we have a partnership with Overwolf where we can overlay games, and that's something that we can do also. Being able to integrate eventually with like PlayStation, Xbox, and stuff as part of our roadmap. Those guys we've actually talked to, and they're very interested in GameTree, and they want to partner. And for basically us to be successful in connecting this, it creates a better, healthier gaming ecosystem, which then helps them. But we're still in the earlier stages. We've had about maybe 1.2 million people sign up at this point. But if you compare that to like PlayStation, they have like many, 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 many times that using their service every single day. So we're still just like a rice drop compared to them. But when that comes to crowdfunding, we're at a much smaller valuation compared to like the PlayStation division of PlayStation, for example, where there's still potential for like 100 to 1,000 times returns. So it's kind of nice to be able to share early stage equity in case it goes off in that direction. But yeah, the first version though will be an iOS and Android release, and then we'll add web and desktop later. But we haven't decided exactly when because we're gonna hold off on game sessions and prioritize that lower than user-generated content and stories and being able to discover and hang out in like groups and stuff, which don't necessarily need a desktop version as badly as like game session coordination, for example, would. That's something that we want to use the funding from equity crowdfunding to be able to implement, and to also be able to expand to Hobby Tree as well, so that more people could be able to use GameTree. Another advantage is that suddenly it's an app for everybody. Not everybody is a gamer, but by being an app for everybody, it can become a household name. We can actually afford like kind of mass advertising. For example, we're doing billboards and even commercials and stuff, um, as opposed to it only being something for like a smaller segment of the population. Yeah, let me know if you guys have any other questions or comments or anything. If it's really niche specific stuff, you're welcome to ask it here, or we can discuss offline as well. So will we have filters of when users choose their names in the near future, so they don't pick profanity or words against terms of service? Will there be more of a quality of life update for us to moderate? So moderation tools are going to be basically the next thing after the initial MVP. We're trying to get it out quickly because Futureverse, who we partnered with, we were going to integrate with them a lot earlier, but because of our code base being out of date, it was incompatible with their login system. So part of the terms with that is we just want to get that going and start getting feedback and learning and stuff. And then the next step is the admin systems. Jesus has been sharing a lot of helpful feedback, as well as Becca, over time, about the kinds of things that would help the admin system. So those will be, again, a lot easier for us to work on because we can just develop things so much faster. But if you have ideas for systems you want to see, feel free to just write me on Discord. When it comes to usernames with profanity, that isn't something that we actually have, but I'm going to write a note about that right now. That isn't something that I've thought of. But yeah, users can change their usernames, but that's something that seems like it would be a good check. And then again, you can always like mute and ban people if they're just constantly finding ways around it, like using like zeros instead of O's and stuff. But yeah, quality of life stuff. Like again, we haven't updated the admin panel in a while, and part of the main reason for that is just because the team has been full hands on deck on creating the new version. But we'll be able to start implementing a lot better things in the future. Jesus has been indeed Jesus when it comes to moderating. He's been a solid pillar in the moderation group. I agree. I'm super happy Jesus is even here now. He's my Jesus. But yeah, we actually had a funny chat the first time we called where he's been volunteering. He wanted to volunteer with GameTree, and he's works in corrections, and I was wanting to volunteer with helping rehabilitate prisoners. And it's funny that both of us were wanting to volunteer with what the other people do. That was a fun, that was a funny overlap. I'm settling in Austin right now, so things have just been a bit hectic with, what it's like moving to a new city. But that's something that I've been intending to kind of get into once I'm settled in. It's probably getting close to that time now that I'm starting to be able to get more routine of life together. But this crowdfunding is kind of taking a lot as well. Um, but yeah, my hope is Jesus will be an admin soon enough. Becca's the one who heads that up. Um, well, if there's nothing else, thank you guys for dropping in, and excited to share this news. And then we'll also take clips of this and share it as well, and like other venues and stuff. But GameTree has mostly been a place for people to find gamer friends, and the next stage is really about not only doing that better and having a faster, better app, but also being able to be more of a place for people to stay in touch and coordinate gameplay and build those relationships. So thank you guys for being a part of this, and also to the moderators here who help keep the community safe and informed and able to connect and all that. So thank you guys a lot as well. It's really humbling that you help out. With that, thanks guys, and see you next time. And in the meantime.